Hey everybody, welcome. It's Karen Lanoue from No Limits Businesswoman, and I'm so glad to be here. I'm so glad for you to be here. My apologies, I'm a little bit late. We had some technical difficulties, and so again, glad to be here. Today, we're going to be talking about why is setting boundaries so hard, and how do we overcome it? And I know, again, for so many businesswomen that this is a real challenge, is setting boundaries, really just saying no. But it is absolutely necessary. So again, whether it's in your work life or in your personal life, it is absolutely crucial to you staying out of overwhelm, okay? And for you actually to be achieving the things that you want in your life. And so, because what happens is, well, I'll get into that in a moment, but again, it's absolutely crucial. I'll just say that it's absolutely crucial that, again, we handle this, because again, if we don't handle it, we're just not living the life that we're meant to be living. We're not taking the steps forward that we need to be taking. So just a little bit about me, if this is your first time kind of tuning in. My name is Karen Lanoue, and my business is called No Limits Businesswoman, and I specifically help women in business, whether you are an entrepreneur or you're working for somebody else. I help women to get unstuck. So typically when people start working with me, they're stalled in some area. They're finding that they're procrastinating, they're in overwhelm, they're feel like they're self-sabotaging, or the imposter syndrome, or they just don't have any clarity around what they want to do. And so what I help them to do is get that clarity, get that confidence, so they can start to take quantum leaps forward. So again, today we're going to be talking about why is setting boundaries so hard. Now I'll just tell you a little bit about my story about setting boundaries. So a long, long time ago, right when I was in my first marriage, what I found is I would do anything for everybody all the time. Okay, so they needed help, I would help them. If they looked like they were thirsty, I'd jump up and go get them something. I would be the consummate hostess. Anything anybody wanted or needed, I would be there. If they wanted to talk, if they, their boyfriend or their husband wasn't, if they weren't showing up or they were doing dumb things, I'd stay on the phone with them for hours. In my job, I would do things for other people in my job that actually were helping them and not necessarily helping me. And so they would get the kudos for it and I wouldn't. Okay, and yet I would be the one that was doing all the work. And so, I mean, look, I'm sure this isn't new to you. Likely you've had this happen to you before, if you're actually hanging in and stepping or kind of hanging out and listening in today. But what happened is what I found is that when I actually went to go and get that help or ask for help or I needed somebody to kind of listen to me. The people that I would always listen to wouldn't be there for me. Or again, when I would ask for a favor in my jobs where I would, or the job that I happened to be in at that point, and I needed a favor, I would not be granted it. And so I was not kind of afforded the same types of privileges that I would give other people. The things that I would help them with, I was not getting the help back. So there was a point, when I just kind of, I blew up. There was kind of a number of times in my life I blew up, and one was when I actually left my husband, my first husband. But there was other times when people were just, not accommodating me, and in ways that I would accommodate them, and I just thought it was totally unfair. And so I would blow up, and blow up would mean I would just, I'd yell, or I don't know, there was just, I would just, or I would just leave, right? I would just get so mad and leave. And there was a point where I realized, well, that's not useful. And the way I'm operating is not useful. And so I changed. And so I'm going to talk about some of the things that I did in a moment. But really, again, for us in general, if we aren't setting boundaries, if we're saying yes to everybody else's priorities, we're saying yes to everybody else but ourselves, What's happening is we don't have time for ourselves. We don't have time for our priorities. We get taken advantage of. And what ends up happening again is we're not moving forward because we're not doing our stuff. We're not taking care of our priorities. And when we're not, and when we are not moving forward, when we're not moving forward, again, we're just not getting, we're not getting the things that we want out of our life. And so then we're actually kind of forfeiting our happiness, right? Forfeiting our purpose sometimes for others. And again, I'm not saying that you don't, hey, Christine, I'm not saying that you just say, oh yeah, forget it's all about me. I'm not saying that at all, because I'm really not that kind of person at all. But it is, you have to take that step back and look at, what do I need to do for myself? Have I looked after myself? Or am I always doing something else for these other people that isn't getting, that is, one, not being appreciated, and two, is actually maybe even enabling them. And so what I mean by that is that they have no incentive to change. And if they have no incentive to change, then why would they? If you're always there to kind of pick up the pieces, and I would find this again with my friends, in my jobs, I'd be around kind of picking up the pieces, and other people just wouldn't have to do that. And so as time goes on, what we tend to feel, or what we can tend to feel, is we can tend to feel like we are being walked on, we're being taken advantage of, and we become resentful. And certainly that was my case. That was the case for me. I became quite resentful. And there was a day, there was days I just flew, right? But there was a day when I changed. And so when that day when I changed and decided, like, no, I'm not doing this anymore, I have to start saying no. It was a very scary thing. And again, that's why we don't say no, because we're so used to, if we're people pleasers, because this really this is a people pleasing trait. When we're people pleasers, the reason that we do that is because we get good feedback from it. There's lots of things. People are patting us on the back at times. We are, people are happy with us. They ask us to do more, and they seem really pleased. And so we kind of get this attention. And so because we get this attention, we continue to do it. It's like, oh, okay, I'm going to do this. I remember even years ago, it's funny, it just came to me. I wasn't intending to talk about this, but I think my people-pleasing traits came from, I was very food-oriented as a kid. Excuse me. I remember my mom and dad and I were traveling, and we were at a restaurant, on our way to our destination. It was about 12 hours away. We were going from a place called Kelowna to Edmonton, and it's a 12-hour drive, and so we had stopped. And I was quite young, and what happened is I had seen some people who were in the next booth to us. They had the woman, or I think it was a woman, or somebody had left their wallet behind. Maybe it was a man had left his wallet behind. So I went running out, and it was just a little kid, probably I'm the same height, because I got to, maybe, I think I was younger than 10. But I got to, and when I got to 10, the age of 10, I really stopped growing. This is as tall as I got. But anyway, so maybe I was the same height, but I was, tinier. I remember running out and giving the person his wallet and saying, or whatever it was, I just say, hey, you forgot this. And they just said, thank you so much, because they were traveling too. This is a particular place on the road where not a lot of people would live, but a lot of people would just pass by and stop at this restaurant. And so I got back into the restaurant, and not too long later, I got a banana split, my very first banana split. And so of course I was thrilled, right? So it was just, so that actually led me to move forward and say, oh, if I do nice things for people, I'll get nice things back, right? I'll get good things back, sometimes food. And so again, I became a people pleaser, and I maybe I was going to be one anyways, but certainly that solidified it. But that's what happens for us, is that we just get indoctrinated into the fact that, hey, I'm helping these people. It feels really good, because it does feel good. And I'm getting these kudos back. I'm getting pats on the back and such. But again, over time, what happens is that you realize is that you're not getting done, and you're not achieving the things that you want to achieve. And then when you need help, those people that you've done a lot for it aren't always there. So it is hard then to change that, because what if people don't like me anymore? What if people don't want to be around me anymore? What if people think I'm a bitch? Oh, awful, hey? Or what if people think that I'm being selfish? I mean, how often when we were kids, where we said, well, don't be selfish, right? And again, this is specifically for women. I mean, maybe this happens for men too, but I know specifically for women, these are the things that we kind of have grown up with and endured. So then again, what happens is that we stop ourselves from making those steps, because it just feels like, oh, is this, and it's so foreign to us. It's such a foreign thing for us to learn to say no and say, well, but what if, because we're in our mind, we're kind of going, but what if, especially in our jobs or especially our business, but what if lowering my price would make that person, what if that would, maybe they would buy then? What if I'm really not as good as I think I am? And so really I should give them a lower price. And so we kind of continue to give in. We don't say no. We don't stand solid in where we want, because there's that fear that, again, we're not going to actually get what we want. And, for any of us, it could be very different about the things we actually want, but it could be, again, it could just be that kudos, that praise, but sometimes it could be money, right? That they're not going to pay us, what we want for our service, for our business, for our whatever it is that we're selling. And I don't know if you can hear that. I think it sounds like the landscaping guys are here, but they actually sound like they're in my yard, and they shouldn't be. So I don't know. They must be close by. So my apologies if you can hear it. It's quite loud in here. So we don't say no because of those reasons. We fear loss, essentially, right? And so what has to happen is you have to start to decide, no, I'm worth it. I'm worth making these changes. I'm worth actually looking at my priorities and standing by my priorities. I am worth that. And it reminds me of the L'Oreal commercial from when I was a kid, and I don't think they do it anymore. I don't think they say this anymore, but I remember that they would say, the commercial would say, "Well, I'm worth it." You have this woman, she goes, "Well, I'm worth it, aren't you?" And I remember kind of thinking, well, that's kind of snotty, but whatever. But it really is true. It's just like you have to decide you're worth it. You have to decide that you are worth saying no. It's worth it for you to say no to somebody. It's worth it for you to stand your ground. It's worth it for you to put yourself first. Think of it in terms of, the idea of being on a plane and how they always tell you, in case of an emergency, and, if the air masks fall, oxygen masks fall, then you put yours on first and then you can help others. Well, that's really what it is, because otherwise what we're doing is we are, it's like it's like we're putting ourselves at peril. Another visual just to think about is, and I learned this really early on when I was learning about coaching, is just imagine having a teacup, right? And you keep filling in the teacup, but everywhere we're not saying no, it's become something that we're tolerating, right? And so everything we tolerate, there's a hole there, and so some of that tea goes out. And then another thing that we're tolerating, you're not saying no to, is another thing we're tolerating. The tea comes out of there, and so it's like another hole. And how many of those things that we have in our life that we're tolerating? So we're always trying to fill our cup, but it keeps getting drained, and so there's nothing left for us behind. Or nothing left for us. So what we have to start to do is, again, decide that we're worth it, that we're starting to look at the things that we're tolerating, the things that we're not saying no to, and start to say, okay, I'm worth it. It's okay for me to say no. It's okay. You're not going to just turn around and say, I say no to everything and every request of me. It's not that. You just want to actually be in choice. You want to start to take in this information and start to be aware that you can make a different choice. And sometimes it'll make perfect sense to say no, Or another time, just offer, say, yeah, I'm happy to help you out, but I will do this another time for you, but this time doesn't work for me. Sometimes it's really just about having the right words to say no, as opposed to, no, I can't do it right now, which seems rude, might seem rude, right? Instead, what you want to do, again, is start practicing with some different words and just say, you know what, this doesn't work for me right now, but I could maybe do it another time. Would another time work for you? Because I have to work on this. I have to get this done. Or I have this other thing I need to do. When you start to say no and you start to practice it, what will happen is that it will become easier to do. Now, I have this saying, there will be time, and this is something you need to kind of become aware of and be okay with and decide to be okay with, is there are going to be some people who fall in, which means that they're going to come, you're going to set your boundaries and they're going to go, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And so they're going to fall in, they're going to stay with you. They're going to love you no matter what. And they're going to be some people who fall away. And so in that kind of situation, it's like you just have to be okay with the fact that some people are going to fall away. Of course, I know when I started to make changes, when I started to make changes where I would start to say no, of course, in my primary relationship, my first marriage, of course, that didn't go over so well. And, and that would, that created a tension. And so I had to decide whether or not it was okay for him or me to fall away from him, right? And those things will happen. So sometimes when you start setting boundaries, that will happen. It'll be uncomfortable. But I can tell you, I can virtually promise you it's going to be way better for you in the long run, because the more that you can put yourself first, put your oxygen mask on first and close up those holes, those tolerations on the teacup, the more you'll actually be getting what you need, right? So when you ask for help from people, and the people around you now will be the ones that will also be able to help. So again, in your job, by again just setting those boundaries, and it could just be, I can't do this right now for you, I've got to get this other project done. Then you can, and people say yes. It's like, okay, yeah, or no, I'll just finish it off, right? Which meant they didn't want to do it. They probably were gonna, they just wanted to see if you would do it for them, right? So, but again, the more you do this, the easier it becomes. But just understanding that also what tends to happen is that when we start to say no, we may also kind of, we might start to go to one extreme. So we're going to kind of go from one extreme to the other, and that's normal. It's quite normal when we change things where, it's like you bend over backwards and help everybody, and you say yes to everything and everyone, to you might automatically say no to everybody and everything, and just like yell out, no, I'm not going to do this for you. I do all these things, and so that's sometimes we'll do the extremes. You don't have to, but just be aware of that. Maybe saying it on the first time because it's so uncomfortable that you might come out more, let's just say, assertively. So what you really want to do is just start to say no, start practicing, start thinking about the language. What would you say? What could you say counteractively if they come back and say, well, no, I need this done now? Well, if it's your boss, that's one thing, right? That's one thing. You might not want to start setting boundaries with your boss on your work stuff, just your work stuff. But if there are other things, again, I'm talking more about other people, right? Would be your coworkers, your friends, your family, right? Where you're setting boundaries around that, where you actually do start to you just start to say no. But again, just be aware that you might kind of go overboard and just, and it may shock people, and quite likely it will shock people if this is something that you've been doing for a long time. And so those are the three things that you want to do. Is you want to decide, one, that I'm worth it, right? And believe me, I believe you're worth it. I believe you're worth setting boundaries, okay? You're worthy of setting boundaries. And just start to understand also that some people will fall in. Some people are just totally fine with it, and some people will fall away, which means they'll just go do their own thing. And sometimes when that might happen with our friends, and that might hurt. But then on the other hand, you have to kind of look at, well, look, I was there for them all these times, right? And then when I actually needed something, they weren't there, and that certainly happened to me. And then when I started to say no and started to say no to them on a consistent basis, just set my boundaries, they kind of went away, and that was sad. But again, you just have to kind of weigh that. It's like, okay, well, what was this person actually offering to my life, right? So again, that's the second thing, is just understand that some people are going to fall in or fall away, but you have to say no. That's a number 3 thing. You must learn to say no. You must find the words. You must start to find the different ways to communicate that in a way that feels right to you. Look, I certainly understand that one of the things that has been so instrumental to me is always finding the right words. I don't always have the right words. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about that. But when you are going into situations that feel difficult, when you can start to understand or have the idea ahead of time that, okay, this is what I'd like to say, and when they say X, X, Y, and Z to me, this is what I would like to say back. Now, you may remember it, you may not. One of the ways that you could actually prepare for that is to practice it out loud. And the more you practice that out loud, you actually set up a muscle memory with your body, with your mouth, with your words, with your breath. And so it's just practicing it. So again, setting boundaries, again, from what I see for my clients, for my friends, when we do this, our life starts to change. It gets happier. I certainly know from my own experience that my life got way better because I didn't feel like I was being taken advantage of, and being walked all over, and it allowed me actually to move forward in a very different way, in a very positive way. People see you differently too. And again, if you're in a business where you're wanting to move forward, again, in your own business or you're working for somebody, having that means to actually just hold your ground, people will look at you differently and will respect that. So there are so many reasons to do this. So if you have any questions, I would love to hear. If you're listening now or if you're listening later, pop your questions in later, or pop your questions in. I will come back. I will answer them. Come and join us in our No Limits Businesswoman group. If you haven't been part of our private Facebook group, please come join us now. It's an amazing group of over 600 women. The best way to go there is, the easiest way to go there is just type in sheis.me. So it's sheis.me, and that will take you right to the Facebook group. It's a private group. We'll get you in right away, and I would love to have you there. And also, if you just find that you want to move forward in your business, you want more clarity, your business or your job, and you want more clarity, you want more confidence, and you want to start to take some quantum leaps forward, then connect with me. Let's have a chat. We can chat 45 to 60 minutes. I'll find out whether or not I can help you. I'll actually find out what's stopping you in your business and or in your career. I'll get really clear on that in that time frame, and I'll point that out. And if I think I can help you, I will let you know. But what I will also be able to help you identify some very specific things, 2 or 3 things that you need to shift and change. So whether it is working with me or working with somebody else, those would be the 3 things that you're gonna need that you're going to need to work on. And so it is a great session, no strings. It's not a sales call, because really it's just finding out whether or not, again, we're a match. And that's all that counts, because if we're a match, then great. Makes sense to work together. So the way to book a call with me is to go to nolimitsbusinesswoman.com/talk. Again, it's nolimitsbusinesswoman.com/talk. And I would love to chat with you. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope you had a great Monday so far. Hope you had a great weekend, and I will see you soon. I look forward to talking to you soon. Hope to see you in the No Limits Businesswoman group, and go out and live a no limits life. All right, see you soon.